One of the examples that I give you as far as like we trying to fight but they want to shoot is, I'm not gonna mention the set, but you know, it was a set that the gang that some gang members jammed up one of our homeboys, and we heard about it. So we got in our cars and we drove to that set looking for the dude who jammed the homeboy up. We ran across some other folks, and you know, and we didn't jump on them. One of my homeboys and one of their homeboys got into a fight. My homeboy beat him down and whooped him up. And so we left. We got in our cars and we left. But guess what? They came back with a gun, right? They came back with a gun. One of my homeboys ended up getting shot in the head. And so we got a stolen car. We had our guns at our home, so I had to go and get my shotgun. I had a shotgun at the time. We had to go get my shotgun because we were going to ride right back on them. Back then, if you came through and messed with us, we're going to ride back on you the same day. We ain't waiting tomorrow or nothing like that, unless it's too hot by the police. But a lot of times we didn't even care about that. I know some guys that shot some folks, and the police was a block down the street, and they walked right by the police, sneaked right by the police when they was going to do the hit, and still shot the guy. Shot is more than just one person. Shot a couple of guys, and the police were right down the street. So the homies that I ran with didn't really care, right, about that, and they were willing to die or go to prison for the rest of their lives. But we went and got my shotgun, and my homeboy Poochie was speeding on the freeway. He was driving in a stolen car. One of my homeboys had his old lady with him, and my homeboy Levert was like, "Nah, man, we got to take her back. She can't go with us." So we was on the freeway gear to take her back to the set, and my homeboy was speeding. We got in a high-speed chase with the police. And we went back to the coast and got on 32nd Street, turned down Island. When he got down to 30th Island, I didn't hear him say that he was going to stop. And but he was saying something. I was in the back seat, and he stopped, and everybody flew and got out. And I was like, "What in the world?" So I tried to duck down in the back seat with the shotgun, and police came, drove down on me, and said, "Listen again." I put my hands up, and got out, and he found the shotgun. And of course, you know, we don't snitch or tell, so he asked me, I got the same thing. We knew not to talk regardless, right? Not even trying to prove your innocence, at least at that time. So my thing was like, nah, I don't want to talk to you. And so they took me to juvenile hall, and I'm sitting in juvenile hall like, how am I gonna get out of this, you know? And so I came up with a plan that I got kidnapped, you know, by a rival gang, and they were on their way to take me to the beach. But when the highway patrol got, or whatever it was, police officer got behind them, I think it was San Diego police officer got behind them, they got off on the coast, and this is where they dropped me off at, you know. And that's what I told the detective. When he came in, I said, "Man, I'm so glad you're here." I said, "I didn't do nothing, I'm innocent," you know. And he said, "Then why you tell the police you didn't want to talk?" I said, "Because I was scared, I didn't know what to do." And he said, "Well, why were you hiding down in the back seat?" I said, "Well, because those guys had more guns. And I didn't know they were gonna get out and start shooting. I didn't want to get shot." And we talked. He said, "Well, if I give you a lineup, will you be able to point the guys?" I said, "Oh yeah, bring them here. I'll point them out. I'll show you." He never brought me no lineup, but you know, my thing. "Oh yeah, I can do it." And I was on probation. So I got a call from my probation officer. He was a brother. He was hot, man. He was cussing and going off. He tried to make it seem like he let me go, but I think the police dropped the charges. But he was cussing me out. He said, "I know." The way he said it was, because the gang that I told him was, he said, "Ain't no way they gonna get off in the coast with a Crip, with West Coast Crip in the car, and then stop and get out and run." He said, "That's not gonna happen. They're not gonna do that." And he said, "I'm gonna find out what happened. I'm gonna tell you." He said, "I'm gonna let you go this time, but the next time I'm sending you to CYA." I think about this time I was about 17 years old or what have you, so I turned 18 before he can get me. But 16 or 7, I can't remember how old I was. I think I was about, maybe about 16 or whatever. But I ended up getting another probation officer. So when I went back to juvenile hall, he didn't. There was nothing that I didn't even have him, so he didn't send me to CYA. But this is when I found out that there were snitches on our set, right? Because he found out what happened. And I remember one day I was hanging on the set, and I was with one of my homies that actually was with me in the car. And he said, "Hey, Cornelius," and he started naming some people. He said, "I'm trying to find dust and dust and dust and dust." He was just messing around with me, right? He said, "I'm trying to find dust and dust and dust and dust because I heard they got kidnapped." I'm like, "Huh?" And then he said, He mentioned one of my homies that had his girlfriend. He said, I can understand Dustin Dust being with you, but did he have to have his lady with him too? And I'm like, huh? I said, man, what's going on here? You know, somebody's snitching and telling. You know, he found out. He said he was going to find out what happened, and he did, right? And so that right there woke me up to let me know that, you know, there are people that are snitching. Now, sometimes people could snitch, but if they're not an eyewitness to something, the police will know. And there's a lot of things the police knew about us, but they didn't have any witnesses or any proof to prove it, but they know based on what their confident informants were telling them. And so that's why a lot of times folks try to get rid of witnesses, because they know you can't prove no case without a witness. But the example I was giving you is that that's how, you know, when the shootings started happening, that's how we really kind of got dragged into it, to where that it was an ongoing war all the time. We just forget the fighting. I mean, you still got in fights and stuff like that, but for the most part, it was shootings and stuff, you know, and that was the lifestyle still with the Mexicans too, you know, because every now and then a homie gets stabbed or something, and you know, we have to go take care of business.
So how often would you say things like that nature happen?
You know, you may see that, you may think that it's an exaggeration, but I would say every day. Not every day, but several times in the week, things were going down. And it's not like today, even though these youngsters be talking about, man, we putting in way more work now. So, okay, you want to think that every generation thinks that. But you go look at the stats, you know, and when I got out of the gang, the stats were still going up as far as the shootings, the killings, and things like that. It was still going up, right? So I lived during a violent time, and I lived during a time where the people that I ran with, one of the phrases I always use to say, I cut my teeth with killers. And I mean that literally. I cut my teeth with killers, because the guys I ran with didn't play around. You would get got. Now, there were times I saved people's lives. I mean, one time my homie was getting ready to put the gun and get ready to shoot this dude in the head, and I stopped him because I knew him. He was from Skyline, but I knew him. He was somebody that I thought was cool with me, and at that time. But then I found out later he was putting in all kind of work. I was like, man, I caught the little blues from the homies because they knew that I saved his life one night, you know, because my homies geared to kill him. So I mean, you know, we had the issue, but it was violence was a normal thing, you know, especially with the fighting and the gang fights and the shootings and things like something was going on all the time. And the reason why I kind of say every day, because every day I banged. Every day I hung out with the homies. Every day we was getting into something. But not every day we was across town, right? Or having to deal with somebody coming on our set. The homies used to hang out. This is what we call the set, right? Even though we was from the 20s, we never try to make a distinction between anything. When we said, let's go to the set, when we was on 25th Street, when we said, let's go to the set, this is what we was talking about right here on 35th Pier. It's kind of like the headquarters. Kind of like where all the homies hung out, where we met at, found out where the party's at, what's going on. This is kind of like social media place, our place where we, you know, hook up and get high, and find out where the drugs are, where the party's at, and things like that. A lot of things happen here. Had homies that get killed up here, get shot up here, been shot at. Right down there, me and some of my homies, we were shot at. One of my homeboys got shot in the head, a little bit right down there, and so on. I've gotten in shootouts with some of the hustlers up here, and so on, and had to put it on them. And so, you know, we always, you know, always been something going on up here when you come up here. This is 30th and Imperial. This is the spot right here. One of the most dangerous spots. It was one of the most dangerous spots in San Diego before they had the four corners of life, which was called four corners of death. Right here was one of the most dangerous places. I'm gonna show you through it, and but they caught the blues before they were really accepted. You know, I mean, you have to, every time the homies see you, they jam you up. You got to get in a fight. Then even when we go across town, you know, you got to prove yourself that you one of the homies. And some folks, they caught the blues because when you move from another side of town, they automatically think you were claiming that set, right? And so, no, man, he's a hook. What you doing over here, man? You're a hook. Get up out of here. You know, and if that person really want to, you know, be accepted, he's gonna have to prove himself. You know, so that if they call you a hook, you better throw down, right? And we go across town, you better be one of the first ones out there throwing down and showing that you down for the set. You know, so there were some that did that and was accepted, and there's others that ran out. You know, but the violence in the 70s and the 80s, when I got saved, it really started escalating. You know, it started, and that's why I say my homies that survived through all of that and that are here now and still out on the streets, they're probably suffering from a lot of trauma and they've been through a lot, and they made it through it, right? And so you got to give them respect and props for that, because they're not so much, respecting someone who's a killer, killed someone, and different things like that. But I can't just because I'm from that lifestyle, but from the perspective you survived, you made it through it, because either you're gone for the rest of your life or you're dead, right? And so some of these guys, especially not getting killed, a lot of these guys made it through that violent era. Violence in San Diego peaked around 92, where it reached its highest point. Then it started going down, 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 down. Every now and then it go up a little bit, but it never reached that peak of 92. And it started going up in the 70s, even in the 60s, but it started going up in the 70s. And then in the 80s, it started even rising more. And when I got in church, December of 84, might as well say 85, the beginning of 85, when I got in church, it was still rising, and it kept rising until 92. So you can imagine. And then when the crack epidemic came out, and the wars that was happening over that, man, violence just went to a whole nother level when it comes to that. I'm glad God saved me, because I probably would have been dead or something, got killed or something, or end up having to kill somebody and go to prison for the rest of my life.
So what made you want to get into church?
Well, I didn't look at it from the perspective of getting into church. I looked at it from the perspective of getting saved, right? Serving the Lord, right? And for me, my story is that I think I was about 20. I was about 21 years old, still banging. Police, only thing they can get me on is drugs. Being high. So I didn't realize what they doing then, but they were nickel and diming me. And what I mean by that is, every time they saw me, they knew I was probably high on PCP. Right, so they just started arresting me. And back then they would let you all out on OR, so I would get out and get arrested again. Even one time I got arrested for having some PCP on me, and they had me. I had like 2 felonies and 3 misdemeanors, on that one charge, and I still got out on the OR.
What was the first time you tried PCP?
I would say it's probably like the 9th grade. Because I was in sports, and that's one of the pieces that I left out, is that I was in sports, and I didn't like drinking or getting high, because I felt like that would slow me down in the sports that I was playing. So I would hang out with the homies. They'd be drinking, smoking, all that. You want some? Nah. And I never smoked cigarettes. And my homie Levert used to say, man, corn ain't gonna smoke nothing unless it got some chemicals on it. But before that, I played sports, and I was in school too. Like the homies hang out at the park. Well, then this is junior high. When the homies would hang out at the park, I would go to school. And lunchtime, I'd sneak out there and hang out with them. And then after school, I would hang with them. But I love school. I like school. And plus, my parents, they didn't play around. So I knew I had to do right. And that was one of the things that really used to bother me, right? I had strict parents. And I would be hanging out with the homies. And it would be a party. And I had to be home at 10 o'clock or whatever time it was. I used to have to sneak off, and all the homies still partying till the party's over, right? And that used to bother me. Like, why do they get to hang out and I can't? And sometimes I'll hang out a little bit longer, have to sneak in the house and stuff like that. But my parents were very strict. And one of the things that I would do when I was younger, and even before the gangbanging stuff, when the gangbanging stuff started, then I became a crook though. But before the gangbang, when I would run with Laverne and Poochie all them, they would go downtown and start stealing, and I would hang outside. I said, nah, man, I don't steal. So I would wait for them. They would, all the homies or whoever, that we weren't banging them, but all my friends, they'd go in the stores, stealing and taking stuff, come out with all kind of stuff, and I'd sit outside and wait. Like, I don't do that, man. I was taught better. You know what I mean? I don't steal. So what was your original question on that?
Oh, I said, when was the first time you had tried PCP?
Yeah, so the first time I think I tried PCP had to be in the 9th grade, because I played sports in the 8th, and I think in the 9th grade is when I started really like drinking and smoking PCP, because in the 8th grade I was still into sports, and then when I got into 9th grade I was still into sports, but after football season ended, that's when I started turning it up. And don't get me wrong, even in the 8th grade or whenever, I can't remember exactly when, but I still drank after the football was over. Because I would play football, I wouldn't do anything, but when the season was over, I would drink a little bit or what have you. But it really turned up for me in the 9th grade. And then when I graduated out of the 9th grade and going to high school that summer, I was 14 going on 15. That summer is when I think, for me, partying, getting high, drugs, and violence just went to a whole nother level. In that summer, and from that point on,
So back to saying how you got into church, or
How'd I get in church?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for reminding me. With church, so like, I was about 21 years old, as I said, and the night before, because you asked about the night before, I had smoked PCP, and we had party all that night. The next day, I had to go to the employment office because I had gotten fired from my job. I had a job at that time. Your brother was born. He was a youngster, Jarashian. He was born, and so we had a little place in East Dago, and I had a job and so on. And she came to the Carla, Jarashian's mom. We got into it because she took something on my wallet or whatever, so I took her purse. And she came on my job trip and got me fired. And so I got fired from that. And so I was trying to, find another job. And I went to the employment office downtown after partying all that night. And the lady was interviewing me, trying to get my information. And my mind went blank. And I don't know if she asked me where I live, my name. She asked me a couple questions. And I was like, I don't know. And I could see her. She was like, you mean to tell me you don't know whatever your name or where you live or whatever? And I was like, no. And I know she was like, it's her sister too, man. But I felt so humiliated, man, when I left out of there. And when I left and got on the bus, going back to the set, my thoughts started coming back to me. But I remember getting off the bus on 32nd and Market. I was sitting across the street. I don't know if it was a church building or some kind of building, but I remember sitting on that building, sitting on the steps, and I saw somebody walking inside. And I said, let me get away from this place before they say I'm trying to break in. But I think it was a church or something. At least I thought it was because I started thinking about God, right, as I started leaving. But what really happened is when I was walking up 32nd, going towards Broadway, walking up the hill, it seemed like the lights turned on, right? Like I looked around me and saw creation. Creation is a powerful witness. No individual is going to be able to say that there is no God by looking at creation. Creation itself is a witness. Nobody witnessed to me. Nobody invited me to church. Nobody did anything. But I walked up that hill and God revealed himself to me, because when I saw creation, I said, this stuff got to come from someone. It seemed like, we see creation every day, right? But it seemed like that day it was different. And as I was walking up the hill, it just seemed like the lights came on. Like there's a God. And all this stuff came from somewhere. And I want to know who this God is, right? And that's when I started my quest, right? So immediately, man, I went to a church, right? The church I actually got saved at Great Apostolic. I actually walked by there, but it didn't look like it was open. So I walked down Imperial, went up 30th, and there was a preacher, because there's a little church over there on the side off of 30th Imperial, between 30th Imperial and 30th and L. There was a little church right there. And the preacher, we knew the preacher, and the preacher was outside doing something, because we used to mess with him and stuff like that. But this time, like, I'm serious because I want to know who God is. And so I just walked up to him. I said, hey, I want to get saved. He said, you do? I said, yeah. So he took me to the wherever it was and prayed with me and he said, you saved, right? So I went home and I started reading my Bible. And I'm glad God put the right words in my mom's mouth when I asked her. But I was reading my Bible, and for some reason, the Bible, everywhere where I was reading in the Bible, was saying you have to be baptized, right? And I don't remember what day it was that I went to that church, but they were going to come pick me up that Sunday. And between time, I was reading my Bible. I want to know who this God is. And as I was reading it, I read somewhere, I don't even remember where I read it. I read somewhere where it's talking about baptism. And so I went and asked my mom, I said, to get saved, do you have to be baptized? And she said, yeah. And I got hot. I said, man, those people lied to me. That dude told me I was saved and didn't even baptize me. When they came by Sunday to pick me, I said, tell them I'm not coming, right? And so I got caught back up with the drugs and everything. But at that time, now I'm reading my Bible. I'm reading my Bible every day. I locked myself in a room for a whole week one time, and folks thought I smoked too much PCP. But I was still going out partying. I was still, hanging out with the homies, doing my thing. But now I'm reading the Bible and I'm feeling convicted. I'm feeling bad about the things I'm doing, even getting high and all these different things, right? And so I remember there were times where at the end of the night, when I was on my way home, I would park my car on the side of the road and pray. And I remember one time I prayed to the Lord. I said, Lord, I can give all this stuff up, but the only thing I can't give up is my set, my homies. I can't give that up. And as I told you, I was getting arrested a lot for being under influence of drugs. So finally, it caught up with me, right? I had to go to court, and I had a lawyer, and they say, hey, look, they're willing to drop these 2 felonies, and they're willing to drop. I think I had like about 2 felonies at that time, and maybe 6 or 7 misdemeanors being high on drugs, and they was willing to drop all of them, only charge me with 2 misdemeanors. And I was, even with that, I was like, because where I was brought up on the streets, you fight, you don't plead to nothing, you innocent, you'll never admit you're guilty, even if you get caught red-handed. So my thing, I still wanted to fight, right? I was like, nah, I ain't pleading to nothing. and my lawyer, she was a white woman, she was like, look, she said, you're gonna go to prison if you get convicted. I said, I don't care. I just go and be with the homies, That's kind of mindset I had. And so my dad James, because he the one that got the lawyer, the lawyer, they talked me into it. They talked me into it because she was saying, you won't do no time. We just get you in the drug rehab program. I said, okay. So I agreed to it, and the judge ended up sentencing me to a year in jail, right? And back then it was county time, so I went up to one of those fire camps. And while I was up there, I think I was doing time for about 2 weeks or whatever, and I got a call from my lawyer. She said, hey, I finally got it worked out where they're gonna put you in drug rehab. She said the judge just did that to make you sweat a little bit, but they're gonna be picking you up. So they picked me up, they took me to the house of metamorphosis, and I was in there for a few weeks. I can't remember how long I was in there, but I was in there for a few weeks, and I ended up starting getting high in there because I was hanging out with this brother that was from the hood, neighborhood Crips, and we became good friends in there because he was in drug rehab too, and he had his homies come through and drop off Sherms at the door, and we were smoking. One time the whole group walked up to the park, we were in the back smoking PCP. But my dad James came to pick me up one day for the unemployment. Because remember, I told you I got fired, and so I had filed an appeal to get employment pay for unemployment. And he came to pick me up and take me to the hearing so that I can prove, tell him why I should be getting my unemployment payments. And so he came to pick me up, and some of the people that was in there recognized him because he was a drug dealer. And so at that time, he was a drug. Sorry, put that out there on my dad, but he was a drug dealer, and they recognized him. I didn't understand this back then, but they were just trying to protect me. But they rushed to the car and said, "Oh no, we'll take you." And they pulled me out. And then they told me. Then somebody said, "Yeah, they did that because some people recognize your dad, and they said your dad is a drug dealer." And I got hot. I said, "You trying to keep me from my family? I'm out of here." I packed my bags and I left, and I knew what I had to do because God was still dealing with me. I was still reading my Bible. I knew I had to give my life to God. I knew that was the only thing that could help me, right? And when I left, I never forget this. When I left, I had my little bag, and those drug counselors in there was like, man, they talk to you rough. And they were talking to me rough, and they're talking about how I was going to ruin my life. They said, "So this is you, huh? This is all you got? You trying to talk about how I'm going to either be dead in prison," whatever the stuff they were saying. And I didn't want to hear it because I already knew in my mind what I had to do. And by this time, I was getting deeper in the Lord, right? And so I left. I called my dad and stuff, and I tried to turn myself in. I tried to turn myself in. but they wouldn't accept me. You know, they say, hey, we don't have nothing on here that you have a warrant or anything. Because I just wanted to do my time and get out. And so we got hooked back up with my lawyer. She got highly upset. I went to her office talking to the other lawyers. She was a paid lawyer too. And she was highly upset because she felt like, which of course now I realize that, but she was like, he has a drug problem. You know, he need help, you know, and why you leave, you know, you could have got help. And I was like, nah, I don't want to be in there. And I told him, I said, look, I was being tempted while I was in there. You know, it wasn't help. I said, just let me do my time so I can get on out and I know what I need to do, right? And so the guy that ran the law firm was a brother. And he said, well, hey, if the brother want to just, you know, do his time and get on out, then go ahead and do that. So we went back to court. Instead of getting sentenced to 1 year, I got sentenced to 6 months, did 4.5 months, got out. But I went right back to it, right? Still reading my Bible. Me and Carla, we stand over in Encano with Jerashian, but I was still getting high. I was reading my Bible, I was still getting high. So one day, I was with one of my homies and my homie Pooh, and he said, hey man, T-Roll is selling some Sherm, man. Let's go over there and actually smoke one with us. And so we went to his house. I think he was living on Webster then, and went to 30th and Webster. Went to his house, said, hey man, smoke one with us, cuz. And he thought about it, you know, because me and T-Roll, we grew up as little kids together, you know, playing the sandbox together and everything, you know, running around snotty noses. My mom was good friends. So we were good friends. I knew him. He was from the 30s, I was from the 20s, but we were still good friends. And he thought about it, and he said, meet me down on 30th Imperial. There's a vacant lot across the street. He said, meet me down there, man, and I'll smoke one with y'all. And so me and Pooh, we went down to 30th Imperial. We met him down there, and he blazed one. He smoked one with us, man. And we was in that vacant lot, and I got high. I mean, that he had some good stuff, man. And so and maybe because I just got out or whatever, I don't know, but I went. It was some apartments on 30th and L. So you go through the vacant lot, cut across the alley, and then there's some apartments. So I was sitting on the steps, high, tripping off my high, man. I don't know how long it was, but Pooh came walking by, and Pooh said, let's get up here, man. T-Roll just got killed. I'm like, huh? I said, we was just together, man. What you talking about? He said, man, I'm telling you, he's dead right now. Go up there and see. And I went down. I went up on the pier, walked down, and on 30th Imperial, closer to 31st Imperial, right before in front of Fred's. In fact, he got killed in front of one of the houses he used to live in. And I saw him there. He was laid down like this. And I think he got shot in the head and in the chest. But I don't know if he just fell like that or he was trying to block the shot, but he was down like that. And I looked down at him, and God dealing with me, right? And I look down and I see him on the ground, and I'm like, man, that can be me. That can be vacant lot right there where we hung out and got high at, and you know, people got robbed and beat down there. And so T-Roll met us there, and that's where we were smoking Sherm, and we got high. And so if you come down a little bit more, you see those apartments right there, right? That's where I went. I went and sat on the steps of those apartments right there, and started trying to come down and killing off my high. And when Pooh told me that he was dead, I came out and walked down this street down here. You can see where those bushes are, those green bushes way down the by where it says the disabled sign, blue disabled sign. That's where he was laying at. That's where he was dead at. And I walked down, saw him, walked on back, got in the car with the homies, and you know the rest of what I told you about that. Yep, but this is one of the spots where we hung out at, and we got shot at, and one of my homeboys got hit in the head right here, but all kind of stuff. One time down there, got into a shootout, all kind of, I started naming stuff, it'd be too much, and I wouldn't say too much on those types of things, but have a lot of, you know, this community, and when you came down here, this is where you had to come ready, because something could jump off at any minute, any time, or what have you. And it feels kind of strange now that I'm out of it, and I come down here, especially if there were a whole bunch of people down here. I feel out of place, you know, because I've been out of this so long, all right? Me now, I'm really thinking about life. I'm getting some truth through the word. My eyes are becoming open, but at the same time, I don't want to let go of this lifestyle. And so I'm hot, though, too, now, right? Because the way we do it, I told you, the way we do it, you hit us, we hit you. And we don't wait till tomorrow. We doing it tonight, right? So some of the homies, you know, they were getting in the car. So I got in the car with them. And I'm thinking, we're going to go get the guns and we're going to go put in the work, right? And they go down to 33rd somewhere and start smoking a sherm. And I'm like, cuz, the homie just got killed, man. And y'all down here getting high? We need to go do something. And I got so hot and mad, man, I got out of the car. I didn't even smoke. I got out of the car, man. And then when I got out of the car, the thought jumped in my mind. If that was you down there dead, they'll be doing the same thing, right? They'll go somewhere and get high. They ain't gonna avenge you, your blood, And so I was hot, man. I think I went home that night, and I caught the bus. Did I have a car? No, I caught the bus. I don't think I was driving. I caught the bus, whatever way. I got back to the set, and all the homies at Memorial Park, because that was one of the hangout places, and there's a lot of homies down there. And every circle I got in, or was hearing the chatter, they were talking like they didn't care about the homie, and they was glad that it happened to him. And then there was chatter like, who done it? Who could have done it? And when I heard that, I got even hotter. Like, so, number one, the homies don't care. Number two, when the homies did it, so I left the park. And I remember leaving the park, and I remember this vividly in my mind. When I left that park that day, I said, okay, Jesus, you got me. This is one of the parks that we hang out with. The day that I decided that I was giving all this up, I was right here at this park. This is where all the homies hung out at and stuff. And I left this park deciding that, I was going to turn my life around to God. This was it. So I played Little League right here with baseball, played for the Braves. This school, Logan, I went to this school, graduated from this school. Down there is Memorial. I graduated from there. This swimming pool, this is where I learned to swim at. It's right down there at the swimming pool down there. So yeah, this is my neighborhood, my community, where I grew up at. And got a lot of good and bad experiences right here. So that's just the way it is. Wire Brothers still there. When I was a little kid, it was the same store that was there. Same name, I should say. Probably different owner. But yep, this is the hood, the community. We play football up here, got high up here. And we hang out here, and then we go down to Memorial Park and hang out at the gym. They had weights down there, ping pong, pool table, and basketball kept us busy. So yeah, this is it. At the park, and all the homies, I'm still like, cause when I went to the park, I'm still thinking like, we gonna get some revenge here, and then when I get there, nobody cared, and someone was even like, F that fool or whatever, and I know T-Row did some things, but we all did, right? As far as, beating somebody out, something taken from somebody, whatever it was. I don't know what people had issues with him, but he was one of the homies. So then I started hearing chatter about when the homies could have done it. They were throwing names out there, and I was like, wow. So when I left the park, in my mind, when I left the park that day, my mind was made up. I had made my mind up. I said, you know what? I'm done with this banging stuff. And I said, hello, Jesus, goodbye, world. I don't know how I phrased it in my mind, but I remember saying that, okay, the only friend that I have is Jesus. I made up my mind that day that I knew that. I knew that was the only person I could trust and the only friend I have, and I was going to give my life to him. And so what ended up happening to me, though, is after that happened, I ended up, because I stopped really, like, hanging out. I mean, I was still, kind of, I still consider myself as a Crip, but I had a different view now. I knew that, like, you know what, I'm going to give my life to God. But then I ended up getting something in the mail that said that I still had some cases out there. I think I had 2 more under the influence of a controlled substance. And so I had to go back to court for that. That was around, because I think I got out in June. That was around, when I went back to court, that had to be around either around September or October. I can't remember when it was when I went back to court, because they gave me 60 more days. And then out of 60, you only do 30. And so I did 30 days and I got out, right? And I told myself, because of everything that happened, and when I got in there, I was reading my Bible, of course, said some of the homies hanging out and different things like that. But in my mind, I wasn't saved yet, so I wasn't living like I was saved, but I knew what I had to do. So what I told myself is that I was going to wait until I get sentenced, do this time, and then when I get out, I'm going to get saved. You know, I didn't want to try to be saved while I was locked up, because I didn't know what may jump off, even though it was only 60 days. So I said, I'm going to wait until I get out, then I'm going to give my life to the Lord. And so I did those 60 days or 30 days, and I got out around the last part of Thanksgiving. I mean, last part of November. I don't know if it was Thanksgiving already or if I got out before Thanksgiving, but when I got out, I was out about a week and a half, right? And I remember I told myself I was going to get saved. And I remember one day I was driving. It was about a week and a half. A week. I was driving down the street and it hit me because I was feeling tempted. When I got out, I didn't smoke any PCP, but I was feeling tempted. And then the thought came to mind, and maybe it's the Lord speaking to me, saying, you said when you got out, you was going to get saved, right? So I immediately that day, it was a church on 31st and Imperial, not the church that's there now. I went into that church and said, hey, I want to get saved. And I knew I had to be baptized. I didn't know nothing about the Holy Ghost, being filled with the Spirit, but I knew I needed to be baptized, so I wasn't going to accept anything else. And the preacher told me, he said, well, you know, we only baptize like once a month, and you know, and they act like I didn't feel welcome. And I even had to ask him, well, when is your next service? He said, well, and he was kind of cold to me when he told me when the next service was. So when I left out, I said, I ain't coming back here. and so that night I was downtown because I was looking for a job, and I was on 4th Street, 5th Street. There was a Bible bookstore down there, so I was walking to the Bible bookstore, and I walked by this building. I don't know if it was some kind of complex apartment or whatever it was, and I saw guess who I saw? My friend Emmett Williams, who was like my first friend when we was kids. I met when I moved to the coast. He was a security guard in the store, and I said, hey, we was talking, and he was reading some Jehovah's Witness stuff, but he said, man, somebody left it, I'm just reading it. You know, he was trying to dismiss it, and I said, man, guess what happened, man? He said, what? I said, I went today to a preacher and asked him that, I told him I want to get baptized. He gonna tell me to come back in a month. You know, he said, man, you want to get saved? I said, yeah. He said, my brother baptized you. He's talking about Pastor Wynn. He said, my brother, Pastor Wynn wasn't a pastor then. He said, my brother baptized you. He said, he's been a minister about 10 years now. I said, for real? He picked up the phone, called him right then. And when I talked to Pastor Williams, he said, well, when you want to do it? I said, well, when can I? It was Monday then. He said, can you wait to Bible class on Wednesday? I said, yeah, I'll be there. And it was 28th and L. I showed up for Bible class. And, you know, I didn't know none of the brothers. I didn't know nobody there or anything like that. You know, I'm straight from the streets. But when I came in, I felt welcome. You know, the brothers, back then they had brothers that would stay outside because they would watch, because people were breaking into the cars and things. So we called it Soul Patrol, but we would watch the property, watch services was going on. A couple of brothers would watch the property every time we had a service to make sure nobody broke in the cars or did anything. And so they were out there on Soul Patrol, what we call. And they walked me, they said, oh, come on in. One brother said, come on in, man. And I came in and stuff, felt welcome. You know, I sat in the back, didn't understand what Bishop Taylor, my pastor, was saying. And Anthony wasn't there, though. Pastor Williams wasn't there. I was like, where is he? You know? And he got towards the end of Bible class, and here comes Pastor Williams walking in. He was a coach, so I guess he had to come straight from whatever he was doing with football or whatever he's doing. He was a teacher, too. And he said something to Bishop Taylor, and Bishop Taylor, he was District Elder Taylor then. He was like, started making an altar call, you know. And I'm sitting there, I'm not understanding nothing. I didn't understand the altar call or nothing else. And Anthony came up to me. He said, you still want to do it? I said, yeah. He said, well, he's inviting you to come up now. He's making an altar call now. So, oh, cool. You know, and I jumped up, started walking down the aisles, and everybody started clapping their hands. And I was like, wow, man, this is just like the Bible. Heaven rejoices over one sinner repenting. Because I was in my word, man. Even though I wasn't saved, I was in my word. And everything was coming to life for me, man. When everybody started clapping their hands, when I got up and walked down, man, that really touched me and hit me, right? And I was like, man, this is just like the Bible. Heaven rejoices over one sinner that repented and having 99 righteous. And, you know, he asked me, well, I want to get saved. Yeah. And that night, Pastor Williams baptized me in Jesus' name. And the same night, God filled me with the Holy Ghost. So After that, it was history for me, right? Because the church, they had something for young people all the time. I was 22 years old, 22 and a half years old. I was still with Carla at the time, but we started drifting because I was in church and she wasn't. And we started drifting and we ended up breaking up. And that's how later on I met your mom, met Carol, my wife, I should say. We got married after a year and a half being in church. I met her about when I was in church for about a year. I met her. And then 6 months later, we got married. We dated for 3 months. 3 months later, we got married. And been history ever since. Everything was God ordained. God did it. God ordained it, right? And that's why I know that, like, every individual has a purpose and called for a reason. And God saved me for a purpose. He saved me for a purpose. Sometimes I pervert it and mess it up and twist it because I want to do my own thing and bring self into it. But if an individual can really totally surrender, submit to God, they won't have to waste all the time that I've wasted to actually fulfill the purpose that God brought you here. You know, every person has a purpose. And if they just get in the right relationship with God, where God can reveal that to them and take them on the path that he want to take them on, they'll see their real purpose. And that's when you come to life, when you're doing what God wants you to do.